now to discuss this further. It's political analyst, Professor Tim Wilson. So good to see you, all healthy and well.
It's lovely to see you too.
Exactly. I mean, great. So let's have a look at this. I mean, first of all, why have tensions risen now? Were these fishing rights and maps, drawn out when Brexit came to pass? I mean, why is this new? What's going on?
That's part of the problem. So if you're listening to Madame Girardin, she says that exactly the agreements that were made are not being kept, and France has not got the quota of boats that it was promised allowed to fish in British waters, and therefore there's retaliation. Britain, meanwhile, would say that the boat that's recently been picked up, which are showing now, the Cornelis, that this had a right to fish in French water. Now, there is a suggestion that there's been a UK administrative error, that the UK believes this boat had a right, and that this is not recognised in the French lists, and it seems to be a UK problem. All we should do, says the trawler itself, all we should do is apologise for a spreadsheet error. And the trawler would say that it's being used as a prawn. It's being used as a pawn in an ongoing dispute between Britain and France. But there's something wider. Now, on the one hand, you've got to be really careful that we don't present this as a revival of the sort of cod wars which we had in the 1950s and 1970s with Iceland, because I don't think it's at that level. But on the other hand, diplomatically, the diplomatic theatre has been ramped up to a degree which is almost unprecedented. To call our nearest ally, to call their ambassador to speak to the foreign embassy, and it depends which papers you're reading as to whether this is a meeting with a minor minister or with Liz Truss herself.
Sure.
This is unprecedented.
So tell us both sides. What sides? So you said, is it? Okay, France has threatened sanctions, right? Yes. Are these just both sides just bolstering before Christmas? Is this post-Brexit? We still have this hatred that you left us in the EU. No, we're not going to play by your rules. Is this are these just shadows of all this?
Well, I think that may be going on in the background, but that really is an excuse. You've got to see this in the light of the French politics. Monsieur Macron is facing an election next year. There's also been the AUKUS submarine deal, which injured French pride, and the rise of Eric Zemmour, as well as the continued presence of Marine Le Pen, which means that the French president needs to project a strong image to the French right wing. And this would be one way of doing it, to be leading the way in Europe, to be a strong France, saying no to a difficult Boris Johnson, and also sending a very clear message to other countries in Europe who may be thinking of their own quick exit, like Poland. So on the one hand, it's about French politics, which I think is very important. On the other hand, it's about British politics, because Britain is thinking about triggering Article 16. Britain is in negotiation.
What's Article 16?
Well, Article 16 would mean that it doesn't have to keep all the agreements that it made with respect to the Northern Ireland arrangement, where there's a sort of halfway house between being in the EU and being independently in Brexit, and Britain is flexing its muscles there. So both countries have good reason to want to project power, and the fishing fleet is caught in the middle. Now, I think it's very important to reflect that the fisheries was one of the main, I ideas. It was promoted by the Brexit campaigners to say, let's free our fishing fleet. Well, the fishing fleet is now caught in the middle of this and is not doing very well at all. On the French side, I think Madame Girardin said that the French she said the French fishermen, but the French fishing vessels are only doing 45% of their work every day. Wow. And the British fishing vessels are also losing money. So both sides are suffering because of this bureaucratic muddle over Brexit. Okay. So you have to see this in the broader context. But then the second issue really is the language which is being used, and so the
threatens of sanctions. We're going to do this. Call the ambassador. Get him in here. I mean, it's also like as if we're at war with France. Not we, but the UK are at war with France.
Yes, it's extraordinary. This confrontational language. Again, Madame Girardin says this is not a war but a fight, and then she points to the agreement that was signed. She has incidentally dismissed the idea of stopping electricity going to Jersey, so that is no longer on the cards. But the three threats which we were given the other day were, number one, to ban UK vessels access to ports from Tuesday, number two, to add extra checks to cross-channel trade, and number three, to threaten the UK energy supply. So number three seems to be, that threat seems to have gone. But the other two threats are quite real, and this will revive the slowdown of lorries moving across the channel. But it just poisons our mutual water. It poisons the channel, and our relationship with our nearest ally is seriously damaged because both countries are playing to, as you put so brilliantly in your introduction, both countries are playing to their domestic audience. The trawler that you're showing is not the only trawler involved. There was another trawler that was given a verbal warning. Yes, it's retaliation. So we haven't given France the number of licenses which France believes is its right. I think the British are, the British government is quoting a lot of figures. When government ministers start quoting figures, I think one's on rather dodgy territory. They're saying 98% of EU licenses were granted, and
why not 100%? I mean, if they're licenses, why not 100%? I mean, if you do that, at the end of the day,
the UK says a lot of the boats which have applied for licenses have not fulfilled the criteria. We believe there's 1,673 EU vessels which have been granted a license.
Right.
Madame Girardin says actually, according to her figures, there's only just over 90% have been granted licenses, and the other 8% that haven't been granted these licenses are all French.
But Tim, I mean, don't get me wrong. It does seem like, there's always a 10% error in everything that happens around the world, especially when it comes at government levels. Why are they making such a big deal about it?
Well, I think a lot of this is posturing. As I said, one should always be careful when government ministers start quoting figures, and both governments are going for these very, 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 very high figures, 90, 98%, 90%. Well, this seems good to me. But the figure which is much more telling is that 45%, the French fishing vessels are only doing 45% of their normal business, and that this is not the deal that the French fishing vessels signed up to when we signed our Brexit.
Tim, what does that mean? They're only doing 45% of they're only working half days because the British are stopping them from working the other half a day, or
Yes, are we sending them back? Have we got our own fleet of ulak boats?
Right.
If we haven't, maybe we should have these. Because I think when you listen to another person who's been rolled out with rhetoric in the last couple of days, she definitely could do with some ulak boats. She should be talking to Turkey about whether or not we should be buying ulak boats from Turkey. These independent, unmanned boats that can patrol the channel, because we don't have the facilities for patrolling the channel sufficiently. So therefore, we have problems deterring refugees from coming over here if we want to. And the lady who's been rolled out, and she's extraordinary, Priti Patel. She says the use of confrontational language that has been consistently used by the French government. She says this is wrong. Well, I mean, this is from a minister who was accused of and recognised to have been bullying her own staff, and still she kept her job. This is a minister who has been accused of bullying is telling another country that their language is too confrontational. I find this extraordinary. This is, I think, what gives the lie to the whole story. This is about theatre and a rhetoric. This is not about reality. Right. And you know, there's too much rhetoric at the moment and not enough realism.
Do we know who patrols the channel? Is it the Navy? Is it the Coast Guard? Who's in charge of making sure who's doing what?
Well, the Coast Guard is under an obligation to rescue people.
Right.
The Navy is presumably under an obligation to deter people who shouldn't be coming. So I think it's both, and this is where the problem lies. If the Coast Guard sees a vessel in difficulty, it has a moral and I think a legal duty to help. So the idea that there's going to be a new move in British politics to deter refugees from coming to the UK, rather like the situation which took place in Greece a few months ago, this process of pushing refugees back. This has horrible consequences. The optics are bad, and I don't see that the Coast Guard could be involved in that in the UK. Maybe the Navy could, but I think the Navy has other things to do. So again, I think this is about rhetoric and about not being able to do what Priti Patel claims she wants to do.
While I have you here, Tim, I hope you don't mind. I've missed talking to you, but how's the supply chain when it comes to from between France and the UK? I mean, we heard about your gas problems. We heard about some shelves being empty. Has that all been worked out?
It seems to be a little better at the moment. I can only go on what I hear, but this present crisis looks as if it's going to be difficult, and the government is putting out ideas that we have to prepare early for Christmas because supplies may not be as readily available in the run up to Christmas as we would hope. So there's rumblings again of concerns. This doesn't sell the idea of Brexit very confidently, I think. But the present crisis is probably more likely to be disruptive than anything else. And I would hope, I would certainly hope this goes away very quickly.
We do hope so too as well. It seems like everybody's in crisis with their neighbour these days. Okay, Tim.
Well, we have to stop that, yes. Exactly.
Indeed, it's almost Christmas after all. Tim, thank you so much for joining me here today on A News. Always a pleasure talking to you, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
And I hope you stay well. Take care.
It's very good to see you as well. Bye-bye.
All right, well, that does continue. Let's see. That's what's going on between France and the UK. We'll get back to more of that if anything develops. You can always